Hello everybody, my name is Johan and I've just recently returned from hosting our exclusive Amboseli and Kicheche safari. Okay, now chatting about our exclusive Amboseli and Kicheche safari, we started off with 5 nights in the Olori Motorogi concession where we stayed at Kicheche Bush Camp. Now, if you know the Kicheche setup, they've got 3 lodges, all in private conservancies within the greater Masai Mara. So if you look at the Masai Mara as a whole, you've obviously got the national park, and then you've got the Mara Triangle, and then just sort of outside the national park, you've got quite a few different conservancies that are run. Now, the idea behind this is you can only sort of go there if you stay at some of the lodges, which means you've got a lot less vehicles in there. And you've also got the freedom of being able to go off-road, especially for high-profile species like your big cats. And that's one of the reasons why we kind of went with or chose the Kicheche lodges, because they've got the small, intimate camps, but also being in those conservancies, it was like got fantastic predator viewing, and also not having so many vehicles around, and then for photographers being able to go off-road. All of these things kind of add up to make it a successful safari experience. So like I mentioned, we stayed 5 nights at Kicheche Bush Camp in the Olori Motorogi concession, and the game viewing, as always, delivered in every way possible. Our focus there was on the big cats, and we had fantastic lion sightings and cheetah sightings as well. We, as always, we'll leave out early in the morning before it gets light, and this time of the year it actually got light quite late, only sort of just before 7 o'clock. So we would have that first kind of hour almost to try and find some game, some high-profile species, and then hopefully get them by the time you've got the golden light coming out, which happened on most occasions. So, yeah, like I mentioned, we had fantastic lion viewing. There's some big prides around, some beautiful males, and we spent a good amount of time with them. We also then found a couple of female cheetahs, a couple of male cheetahs, single ones. We were looking for a female that has 2 cubs at the moment, but we found out that she had moved to the Naibosho concession, which was our second stop. I think, apart from the amazing predator viewing we had at Kicheche Bush Camp, I think one of the highlights, one of the things that really stood out was seeing a giraffe give birth. Now, for me, this is only the second time in sort of 19 years that I've seen this happen. And we were very, very fortunate. We were sitting with a big part of lions. I think there were about 14 in total that were on this wildebeest kill. There was lots of hyenas around. It was an incredible photographic experience, but also a great experience just to kind of sit and watch them, the interaction between the hyenas and the lions, and then jackals coming in. So we spent probably about close to 3 hours in this particular sighting when James, our guide, got a call from one of the other guides who was on his way back to camp that they saw a giraffe with 2 little legs sticking out, which meant she was about to give birth. So we made our way there. I mean, we photographed everything we possibly could in the lion sighting. And then I made our way. It took us about maybe half an hour, 40 minutes. And kind of during this time, you always think to yourself, just, we hope we don't miss this once-in-a-lifetime experience. But luckily, James was a very experienced guide. He knew that this, doesn't just happen very quickly. It takes a bit of time for this to unfold. We then found this giraffe again. Like I said, we were all by ourselves. Most of the other vehicles were starting to make their way back to camp for breakfast. And we spent about an hour, a little bit more than an hour with this giraffe. We decided to have our breakfast in the vehicle and watch this whole scene unfold in front of us. I think what made it even more special was there was another female giraffe with quite a young one, maybe like a few weeks old, who then approached this mother that was giving birth. And you could see kind of like every few minutes, like more and more of this baby was coming out. And eventually, this little youngster flopped on the ground. It's quite a big fall from up there. And what was fascinating, is to then kind of watch the story unfold, watch this youngster as, it tried to get up numerous times, obviously still, very sort of unbalanced, falling down a few times. And eventually, with the help of mom, the youngster got up, stood up, took its first few steps, and then suckled. And I think this whole process, the whole sighting, took about 2 hours. And what kind of blew me away was that a lot of the other vehicles would going back to camp. And, we mentioned to a lot of people what we were seeing, and, they were, in their minds, too far to see it. But, I mean, for us, it was a no-brainer staying out there. It's probably something you'll possibly never see again. So super special to watch this all unfold in front of us. And so that definitely has to be one of the highlights, if not the biggest highlight from our time at Olori Motorogi. From there, we took a drive over to Naibosho. So it's like early morning. We did a drive from bush camp and then went back to get our luggage, and then a transfer drive of about 45 minutes to Kicheche Valley Camp, which is in the Naibosho Conservancy. And this camp is probably like a little bit more luxurious than you'll get at bush camp. And again, only 6 tents, which makes it super nice, super intimate. And, we're taking up the majority of the camp. Even though we've only got 3 guests on the trip, it's all on a single room basis. So, half the camp is taken up by us, which means we've got a lot of space to do light room and stuff between drives. Now, at Naibosho, one of the things we were targeting and were looking to focus on was there are 2 different female cheetahs with cubs. One female's got 4 cubs, other one's got 2 cubs. And, spending time with them was absolutely phenomenal. We got them the first afternoon, watched them sort of climbing in trees, playing around. We were hoping that we'll get them out on the hunt, but unfortunately it wasn't meant to be. There were a lot of hyenas in the area, and also the area where the female with the 4 cubs was in, there wasn't a lot of general game left in that area. It looks like she's finished up majority of the game that was there. So hopefully, she'd move to an area with more general game, more food for her. But, there's always the risk that she could potentially bump into other predators. So that's why they tried to kind of keep the movement to a minimum. But yeah, spending time with those cheetahs was definitely a highlight. And then another thing that also stood out was very close to camp. On our second to last day, there was a pride of lions, quite a big pride, that had taken down a giraffe. So watching that interaction as well, just the hierarchy between the pride, the males, and then the females, and then the sort of sub-adults and the cubs. Just from a feeding point of view, it's always fascinating to see kind of how that hierarchy gets determined around a kill. And also, there were lots of jackals around in the area, so that made for some fascinating interaction and behavior. So all in all, I think the Kicheche side, delivered in every way possible from a predator viewing point of view. Like cheetahs, lions. I think maybe the one kind of downer, if you can call it that, was we didn't really have as many leopard sightings as we'd hoped for. But, that's just really being extremely picky, and like I said, we can't complain about, the lion and cheetah viewing we had. And then to finish off the trip, we spent our last 3 nights in Amboseli. So it was a quick 45-minute flight from Naibosho into Amboseli. And our focus here was obviously elephants. I don't think there's a better place in the world to photograph elephants, especially the big tuskers. And that was one of our focuses. We wanted to get those big tuskers, and we ended up getting 2 different individuals, which was phenomenal. Unfortunately, this time the dry lake bed was flooded. They had a huge amount of rain in Kenya over the sort of January, February period. But, that didn't sort of detract from the experience at all. We had some incredible viewing of, like I mentioned, the big elephant tuskers, the big bulls. And, photographically, it is an amazing experience, especially if you get the moody skies in the afternoons, shooting with wide angle lenses. It's a lot of fun, and you can create some very dramatic images. We also had one cheetah that we saw, which was quite unusual for Amboseli. And I think probably the thing that caught me most by surprise was seeing lions take down a buffalo on our very first afternoon there. So that was the first for me. The lion viewing in Amboseli has definitely improved. The numbers seem to be going up. But, watching them take down a buffalo was definitely not something I sort of envisioned or hoped for Amboseli. It was a very pleasant surprise, and it kind of just added on to the incredible predator viewing we've already had during the trip. So yeah, that's about it. An amazing 11-night experience. It just flew by, and I think it gives a great diversity from a portfolio point of view, going to 3 different concessions or conservancies, and also focusing on almost different species as you go into each conservancy. But I think, all in all, fantastic experience. If you want to join us in the future, get in touch. Like I mentioned, it's only limited to 3 guests. So nice exclusive experience in the conservancies. We don't get a lot of vehicles. The ability to go off-road and the fantastic predator viewing makes this every wildlife photographer's dream itinerary. So that's it from me. Like I mentioned, if you want to get to join us on the safari in the future, get in touch, and look forward to having you along with us in the future. That's it from me for this one. Have a good one.